It is my pleasure to greet you on this beautiful day and to welcome you to the commencement marking Friends Seminary's 230th year. Recognizing the importance of this moment, the first thing I would like to do is invite you to disable all cell phones and any other noise-making devices. We gather today to celebrate the successful class of 2016. I'm sorry that other matters interfered with my attending the Powell House retreat, but I hear it was wonderful. I do want you to know that I've really enjoyed engaging with you and your parents these last few weeks. Knowing some of you for 13 years, some for fewer, has been a privilege. I've known 18 of you since you were practically babies, toddling around under the watchful eye of Judy and Chris and others. I think it was your class that provided me one of my favorite kindergarten moments. I walked into the classroom, and I'm pretty sure it was Chris Sincata's, and one of you looked up, saw me, and with a mix of horror and excitement exclaimed, "It's the president!" Your commitment today will leave our classrooms, our stages, athletic teams, and the meeting house diminished. But we know this is the cycle of things. It is right and it is good. Now I'd like to introduce you to the class as it accrued and built strength and character with the addition of each and every member until it reached the number 72 before you. Perhaps a record number, at least in modern days. We have 18 lifers. Would you please stand? That is an achievement. No one came along until 4th grade, and finally there were some new faces, Santi and Soren. There was a drought in 5th grade, but in sixth grade, 16 new members joined the class. There was one who joined us in 7th. Three in 8th. "30 in 9th grade. Two in 10th grade. And one brave and courageous soul in 11th grade. Please be seated. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Matthew Annenberg, co-chair of our Board of Trustees, alumnus and father of 2 Friends students.
Thank you, Bo. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Friends Seminary Board of Trustees. We welcome you, the class of 2016, also known as the 230th graduating class of Friends Seminary, and friends and families to graduation. Welcome, everybody. On a sad note, we must acknowledge the heaviness of today, so soon after the act of violence that took place in Orlando in the early hours of Sunday morning. An act which is so opposed to everything you have learned and gained by being in this place and at this school. An act which adds meaning to our mission to bring about the world that ought to be and reminds us to seize this day every day. Our thoughts are with victims and families. It's been a monumental year for our board and for the school. This is the first time that as an independent board of trustees, we've been able to welcome you to graduation. For 229 years, our board has served as a subcommittee of the New York Quarterly Meeting and its predecessors. We have benefited greatly from the support of the meeting, as they have benefited from our presence, our energy, and our outreach, and our two organizations will continue to benefit from each other, even as we chart independent courses. Our monumental year has brought monumental challenges. As a board, we have felt these keenly. At times, our meetings felt hijacked by the process of separation, incorporation, and preparation for the building that you see going on all around you. But Bo and his team have never lost their focus on the life of the school and its students and families, on how the new 8-day schedule was shaping up, of our strategic initiative towards global education, energetic, inspiring, and crucial discussions around diversity, politics of the day, visiting scholars and guests, the ability of our administrative team, faculty, and staff to keep things rolling and the place humming during a time of great change is a wonder, and we owe them a great debt of gratitude. What will separation and incorporation mean for you as alums? Will you be forced to make excuses as Friends Seminary drifts from its Quaker roots? That's a concern we have heard a lot. Our answer is no way, no chance. Our school cannot be defined by a single trait, but Quaker values are non-negotiable. We do not treat lightly our 230-year legacy of compassion and justice. As alums, you will see the continuing development of Friends Seminary spatially, intellectually, and spiritually as we plot an independent course, but you will never see us step back from our mission. We're counting on you to go out and make the world a better place, and you can count on us to continue to represent what's best in Quaker beliefs and education. We can take pride in each other's accomplishment, and please keep in touch. So once again, our heartfelt welcome and congratulations to the 230th graduating class of Friends Seminary, class of 2016. You are the reason we are here. And we're very proud of you. And now for some reflections from the class of 2016, I'd like to hand it off to Sejan Bhotia and Jack Lanzi.
Hello, everyone. Okay. Educated in public school until 8th grade, I had preconceived ideas of what private school would be like. A naive 13-year-old, I thought that life at an independent school meant wearing fancy clothes every day, getting manicures after school, and drinking lattes during freeze. Soon into my freshman year at Friends, I realized that that was not the exact reality of life at this Quaker school. However, I still felt self-conscious about my background, my race, my culture, and my socioeconomic status. Friends was not as racially diverse as my middle school, which was a big part of the challenge. Less than 20% of the class is made up of students of color. I recall being acutely aware of how different this environment was from the one that I had been at my public school. While it was challenging being a racial minority at Friends, it was even more challenging being an economic minority. I tried to assimilate to norms that were not my own. Although I was on the meal plan, I acted as though going out to lunch every single day was normal to me. I tried to hide aspects of myself for fear of not being accepted. I tried not to talk about my past or reveal too much about my family during conversations with classmates and teachers. I really thought that conforming to a perceived norm was the best path to growing, but it wasn't, and I failed. To try and be someone that I wasn't fulfilling at all. Slowly but surely, I started realizing that I could be myself, and I could be at home in my own skin, even if I was the only one like me here. There could be space for me, even if I had to make that space for myself. Self-acceptance is a lifelong process, and Friends has become a critical part of my development. Over the years, I have felt increasingly welcomed and supported by our community. As I took steps to open up to others, others opened up to me. So many people in this school have readily embraced my background. Students and faculty alike have encouraged me to see my own story as valuable, to understand that my culture is worthy of celebration. At Friends, I have discovered the beauty of being a part of a community of diverse stories. Our Upper Schools Around the World Day celebration, for example, has played a huge role in my sharing my culture with the school community. I was given the opportunity to teach my peers about a range of things, from how to wear a traditional Tibetan chupa to more serious topics, like the political situation inside of Tibet. Furthermore, meeting for worship, a ritual that I have come to deeply respect, gave me a platform to voice my political and cultural perspectives. I was able to stand up and speak about challenging issues, such as the vandalism of a beautiful artwork promoting the Free Tibet movement, which led to more discussion and even an assembly about Tibet. One person in particular, Jason Craig Harris, has opened up my eyes to things that I would not have been able to learn about on my own. This year was about embracing myself, regardless of doubters and negative forces. His classes in religion and social justice and poverty in the United States have allowed me to connect my own life with these topics and share them with students in my class and beyond. His openness about himself and his struggles in life genuinely inspire me to embrace myself. So thank you. Embracing myself has meant embracing my family story, its beauty and its pain. My parents escaped Tibet in 1959 when there was a failed uprising against the Chinese regime. They fled to India with almost nothing from their motherland. With their faith, commitment to family, and sheer hard work and persistence, my parents brought themselves from a life of poverty in India to one of opportunity in the United States. I want to take a moment to thank my parents for all of their sacrifices and their steadfast love of me, our family, and our Tibet. My parents have always thought about others before themselves. They've always made sure that my brothers and I felt comfortable before they themselves felt so. My gratitude towards them is beyond comprehension. Yet daily I pay homage to them, to all struggles for human dignity, and to this Quaker education that has empowered me to speak truth to power. The mission of the school, my parents' lives, and Jason's classes have all combined to inspire me to be an activist for social justice. I have found my voice both as a minority in this community and as an individual in this world. Having become aware of the value and power of my own voice, I have sought to amplify Tibetan voices, which are so brutally suppressed that self-immolation as protest has become an awful last resort for more than 150 Tibetans since 2009. Nobody, not you, not I, nor any human being should have to put their lives in danger to suffer because their voices aren't being heard. I recognize the earnest longing of a Tibet free from oppression, and I identify with that longing for a world that ought to be. I embrace the idea of radical self-acceptance and reject all forces that would require the rejection of myself. It took a while, maybe half my time here at Friends, to come to this place, but I am so proud to be able to say that I love who I am and I am proud of the person that I have become. And I think everybody here should be able to say that, especially in a community like Friends. Friends has transformed me, and I have transformed Friends. I'm so honored to be a part of this amazing group of people who stand for what they believe in and will continue to do so beyond Friends. Thank you, Friends Seminary, for helping me to find my true voice and for giving us the opportunities, the voice that many would only dream of having. Thank you.
In the outer courtyard, there is a sign that lists the times of Quaker meeting. At the bottom, it reads, "All are welcome." It is a simple set of words, but so perfectly defines what is unique about Friends Seminary. Here, every student is welcomed, in fact, encouraged to fully invest themselves in our community, to have their voice heard, and to make a difference. At Friends, teachers impact the upper school both inside and out of the classroom. Jennifer Melorano, a math teacher I had sophomore year, changed my path at Friends by teaching me about both trigonometry and track. It was in her algebra class that I started to view myself as a math kid, and her hands-on activities helped me see math in a new light. Little did she know that this would eventually lead to Sue Beiersdorf telling me to curb my enthusiasm in calculus class this year. Beyond math, she also welcomed me into the Friends track community. While I am by no means sporty or fast, I met some of my closest friends through winter track. Even the teachers who you have never had can shape your experience. One example of this is Maria Fahey, an English teacher whose class I was never in, but she nevertheless managed to shape my education. From discussing novels with peers in her class to the plethora of Shakespeare study guides emblazoned with by Maria Franz Fahey, her expertise has heavily influenced the English education I have received at Friends. In addition to teachers, fellow students have more than shown the ways in which they shape our school. From lunch discussions on issues of learning disabilities and the Israel-Palestine conflict to AIDS walks, a sense of activism is alive and well at Friends and driven by the students. Taking the reins of Empty Bowls, a charity to fight hunger, it has been amazing to see how the support of this community has brought it from a small group of students in a shop to a charity that raised enough to create nearly 30,000 meals in cooperation with the Share Our Strength Fund. Students are also welcome to join new communities and explore different passions. A fellow senior who most people pinned as a sports guy decided on auditioning for the fall play, ended up getting a lead role and rocking it. Other students are content quietly making a difference, whether that's being an every season athlete or putting in countless hours towards the yearbook behind the scenes. Everyone's commitment to their cause motivates all of us to be our best, and I think it's clear from how much this class has done that we feed off one another's energy. While students have come and leave the school, there is one thing that sits at the core of the Friends experience: meeting for worship. These meetings, whether aimed at discussing social issues or simply recounting what happened on that morning subway ride, embody our commitment to making a space where everyone's voice can be heard. Any individual is able to share a message with the whole upper school just by standing up and speaking. What's more is that these messages really do impact our community, as students talk about what is said and converse with peers long after the meeting has finished. A particularly memorable meeting for worship that showed me the power one person can have on a community is one we had this year commemorating the passing of Larry Wilson, the middle school recess supervisor, and so much more. As I embarked on the college process, Larry would ask me what I wanted to do after I graduated, to which I would give my best guess and ask him what he wanted to be when he was my age. He always responded, "A teacher," and then said that at Friends he had finally reached his dream and was one. This could not have been more true. While recess was not a class in my schedule, Larry was one of the most valuable teachers I ever had. He taught me the important lesson of shutting one's mouth, which I am still learning, and was able to lift everyone's days with his jovial personality. If I was to choose one person who truly demonstrated an individual's power to shape a community, it would be Larry. So, as we move through high school and question the relevance of integrals and Incas to our daily lives, I believe it is critical to never stop feeling welcome to join a community and leave your mark. Because Friends Seminary has welcomed us as scholars, leaders, activists, artists, and athletes, we are now empowered to go off and bring about the world that ought to be. I would like to thank the Friends administration, all of the teachers, the parents, my classmates, and Larry for welcoming all of us into a community and teaching us that we can leave our mark. With that, congratulations to the class of 2016 as we go on to new horizons.
Yeah. There we go. 2 weeks into freshman year, I got transferred from an English class due to scheduling reasons. At the time, I thought this was an academic blessing, as we had just begun to read the Bible. I was wrong. I pushed open the door to find Josh Gorin sitting behind the desk. Not only did I have to read the Bible, but I'd become a part of a class led by a bearded man who named his sons Judah, Abram, and Moses. After introducing himself, Josh began to read. On the first day, there was the beard. Josh, while incredibly invested both professionally and personally in the book we were reading, still managed to joke about the material. His quick wit and seemingly endless supply of funny biblical jokes kept the entire class engaged that day. And that is one of the incredible things about Josh. He can recognize and empathize with the disinterest that sometimes plagues the student body. I can only remember one instance when Josh lost his class's attention, even if only for a second. He had launched into your average Josh Gorin anecdotal diatribe, a mixture of some story from college and a little bit of moral lessons mixed throughout. He began to draw a diagram on the board, illustrating his relationship to his college roommates. And as he drew yet another circle, this time labeled people who I sort of like, who resembled Judas in my mind at the time, the class began to get restless. Inch by inch, we scooted our chairs closer and closer to Josh. After the board was filled with Yale alumni and the dry erase marker ceased to function, Josh stopped talking and turned about face. He jumped up when he realized that as a class, we fully closed the distance he was accustomed to having between him and his students. He smiled and praised us for our cooperation before asking us to move back and give his beard some space. Josh has a certain comedic magnetism. Not the same type of magnetism that drew the class towards him in that moment, but the one that was displayed afterwards. The magnetism that leads former and current students alike to seek his academic and social counsel. A magnetic aura that draws students into his class, keeping them engaged. His class is not just the dissection of the book we are reading. Instead, it's an anecdote-filled dialogue between Josh and his students. His class is an academic inquiry into how a book connects and relates to Josh's past, present, and future. The Bible in particular lent itself to this structure. The stories of Joshua, Moses, Abram, and Judah were unavoidably filled with sidetracked conversations of his sons and how they were all coming to friends. Josh's anecdotes of his personal life in college started to become small biblical parables in and of themselves. His wife, children, and friends alike all became characters in our English class. Josh fundamentally lives through literature. His opinions are thoughtful, relevant, and feel evolved, forged from years of literary study. His ability to juggle between complex themes or theories and offside pop culture references is what makes Josh such an incredible teacher. I'm indebted to him in showing me the balance one can strike between comedic relief and rigorous academic study. Please join me in welcoming Joshua Gorin.
Thank you, Atticus. Thank you. Some of that was true. Parents and families, colleagues, alumni and students, the class of 2016, I'm deeply moved to have been invited to speak at your graduation. I am an informal person. I wear casual clothing, and I like to joke around. I'm wary of formality. I'm skeptical of rituals. I worry that someone else is doing my thinking for me. When talking with other people, I don't like the feeling that we're reading from a script, that we're not being authentic. I hate wearing this tie. I don't understand why a piece of cloth is dangling from my neck. I don't mean to suggest that I'm a freewheeling nonconformist. You know that that's not true about me. I am wearing the tie, after all. But when it comes to language, conversations, and stories, I often feel like the rules get in the way of authenticity and truth. You know this informal side of me. When I talked through an earlier version of this speech in front of a group of you a few weeks ago, one of you responded with disappointment. That seems more structured than you are. On several occasions, you've warned me against being overly formal. We don't want that from you, you said. To be informal or to be formal? That is a question I have often struggled with. I invite you to consider this question on this day, this formal day of your graduation. Here's the story. 20 years ago, Rachel and I moved from Iowa to New York and started talking about getting married. We talked and talked. Sometimes we joked, and sometimes we argued. We went to a couples therapist and talked, joked, and argued some more. In one of the strangest moments of my life, the therapist, whose name was Phyllis, addressed Rachel, "If Josh were to ask you to marry him, what would you say?" Rachel said she would say, "Yes." Phyllis then turned to me. "If Rachel were to ask you to marry her, what would you say?" I said I would say, "Yes." Phyllis took us to the brink of the form of a marriage proposal and parked us at the precipice. We'd said the words and had the feelings, but we weren't engaged. More weeks passed. Nothing happened. I wanted to marry Rachel, but was incapable of acting. This was the time to be formal, to read the script, to follow the stage directions, to get down on one knee. "Rachel, will you marry me?" Ultimately, she proposed to me. Yeah. The gender role reversal amused our friends and overshadowed a truth that has since become more clear to me. I'd been defeated by my own aversion to form, my fear that to read from a script would somehow make my proposal insincere. If I could go back, I would make that proposal and make it formally. Perhaps you're thinking right now, this is the type of story more appropriate to a therapist's office than a commencement speech. I'm sorry. Have I broken the form of the commencement speech by telling you an embarrassing and deeply personal story about my own failure? Did you catch the part where I said the words of the proposal like I was actually doing it? Was it like I was using your graduation to fix my mistake of 20 years ago? My understanding of this story comes from telling and analyzing it along with other personal stories during talk therapy. I tell the stories, and my therapist asks me questions. He singles out specific words. He notices patterns and contradictions. Sometimes we learn something, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes I'm too tired to do this well. Sometimes I'm not open to what the story might be suggesting. In these ways, talk therapy is similar to English class. English class and therapy are formal structures that facilitate the search for truth through the careful analysis of narrative and language. These structures can lead participants to a deeper understanding than one person could have achieved alone. Neither therapy nor the deep study of literature can be successful if there is no vulnerability, no genuine danger, no risk of exposure. Neither can be scripted because both rely on who specifically is in the room. Part of what makes our school a Quaker school is our wariness of over-scripting the class. our belief that class discussion must be sufficiently open because the truth might emerge from anyone. As a teacher, I have to leave the space for each of you to say whatever you're going to say, or we cannot succeed. Still, both English class and talk therapy employ structures that protect individuals during what can be a dangerous process. When we engaged in formal discussions of Huck Finn, his racism, the limits of his freedom, the glimpses of his self-reliance, his love for Jim, his mistreatment of Jim, his horrifying capitulation to Tom Sawyer, it was dangerous. The conversation was safer because we were talking about the words on the page. We were talking about Huck and not explicitly about ourselves, our own racism, our own weakness in the face of authority. But the discussions succeeded because we were open and vulnerable. The interrogation of Huck's story must also be a self-interrogation. English class is an empty exercise if we don't allow ourselves to feel implicated by the questions we're asking about Huck. Another of my favorite forms is the Passover Seder, the commemoration of the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. Like therapy in English class, the Seder is a ritual storytelling that allows a participant to be both formal and informal. Sometimes Seder goers just read the script, but because the script contains questions and complex symbol-filled stories, even the scripted Seder offers opportunity for reflection. For me, the best moments are those when the Seder script breaks open and discussion takes over. At my Seders, the formal often gives way to the informal at the moment when we discuss the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. The question of whether it was God who hardened Pharaoh's heart or Pharaoh who hardened his own heart, refusing to free the slaves, is a profound one. The hardening of Pharaoh's heart leads to evil and suffering. It matters. The discussion of this question leads me to ask how and when my heart is hardened, and what or who is responsible for this. Why does my heart sometimes become formalized, callous, unfeeling, bereft of sympathy? Can I soften? Can I open myself up? The form of the Seder, both strict and open, has the power to lead us to these questions. Stories of all kinds, literature, national and religious stories, the casual stories we tell each other, and our most private stories, the stories we only tell intimates, or the stories we tell only to ourselves, our internal monologue, are the best tool we have to find a balance between a meaningful vulnerability to the world and a more fixed or formal connection to community, to family, and to history. Another story. Every year, my wife and I argue about our Seder. Every year, one of us says, let's just call it off, or we'll never do this again. She carefully prepares for the Seder and thinks I don't do enough preparation. She wants to talk it all through beforehand, and I never make the time to do it. These disagreements are painful and sometimes lead to tears, but we always have another Seder. She's right that it would be better if I did more planning. But I'm also right that my informality is an important part of what makes our Seders meaningful. Just to be present, to read the script, to make oneself vulnerable to the story is to succeed. The Seder, like our marriage, connects us to our past and to our community. It also connects us to our future and to each other. This is the weird moment in the speech when it seems like I'm trying to tell you to get married. I'm really not. Marriage isn't everyone's form. Marriage has been deeply oppressive to women across millennia and has been a dangerous tool used to perpetuate heteronormativity. And when you look closely and thoughtfully, you'll see that almost all forms, when taken to the extreme, have led to oppression, violence, and insensitivity. It is important to be skeptical of anyone telling you, that's the way it's always been done, or this is the way it has to be. What I am telling you is to find your own form, to be formal, and also to be informal. Read the script, but let the script open you to the world and to others, and be willing to subvert or resist the scripts and forms when that is necessary. Be a part of something, and be your authentic self when you're a part of it. Meeting for worship is our school's ritual, our form. Like the Seder, its structure opens up a space for introspection and storytelling. We come to a set place at a set time. We don't prepare for meeting for worship. We just show up. Sometimes we sit in unbroken silence, and that has its own opportunities for self-exploration and communal connection. But for me, the best meetings are those in which stories lead to stories, and those lead to more stories. I like it when the chain of stories opens us up as individuals and as a community. One person's choice to be vulnerable affects us all. When I'm my best self, I'm most open to the stories that come from within me and those shared by others. There are stories that some of you have told that have become a part of how I understand the world and myself. One more story. On May 29th, 2007, in Central Park, I met Philip Roth, the writer whose books have been the most important to me. I know it was May 29th because it was the night before my third son, Judah, was born. In 2007, I was a frustrated, unpublished novelist. I was a bit lost. My life felt formless. I was in the park because I was saying yes to my son, Abram, who wanted me to play soccer with him. Abram was on the cusp of becoming a middle child. I'm not much of a ball-playing dad, but I said yes. Roth was just sitting on a park bench, wearing sunglasses, legs outstretched, hands in his lap, doing nothing. Go talk to him, Rachel encouraged on my cell phone. What followed could have been the most formal of interactions, a 10-second exchange, a fan's polite thank you to his favorite author. But I made myself vulnerable. I asked him for help. I told him about my frustration, my struggle to write and to get my manuscripts published. I told him about my two sons and my third's imminent arrival. Roth listened. By this time, Abram was bouncing his soccer ball off the back of my head. He didn't care that the old man I was talking to was Philip Roth. Roth turned to me, looked at Abram and back at me. He lowered his sunglasses and said, "You've got it wrong. You already have it all. Your family, your sons, that's what's important." It means something when Philip Roth, not exactly known as a family man, tells you that family is important. It was a life-changing moment for me, one that eventually led me to teaching, to this school, to this meeting house, and to this moment. Roth gave me a blessing, a permission to be myself, and it was my vulnerability and openness that enabled me to receive it. Your graduation ceremony is a ritual. A truly informal person, knowing that he would graduate without this ceremony, might not show up today. But it is important that we are here together in this room. We're performing the same rituals performed by last year's seniors and next year's seniors. The form that is high school kept you here from September to June across the past however many years. You followed the script, or most of it. You showed up. With varying degrees of resistance and energy, you conceded to the form by waking up at the right time, raising your hands, turning in the papers, and taking the tests. In your classrooms, you got what is called a formal education. I believe that within Friends Seminary, there was also space for you to be your authentic self, and that you made your education personal, idiomatic, informal, and genuine. Quakerism encourages a blend of the formal and informal. Quaker education is unceremonious, simple, non-hierarchical, unpretentious, but also anchored by community rituals. Think of the intertwining of formal and informal in the way we shake hands and look each other in the eye at the end of each meeting. I know there were many moments in these last years when you let yourself be vulnerable and open. Some of those moments of openness happened in your classes or while playing sports, making art, or performing. Others happened with your friends, so many with your families, and some happened here in this meeting house during worship. I witnessed some of them and enjoyed those moments with a full and unhardened heart. I learned from you during those moments, and I thank you for this teaching. I believe that if you can find a balance between formality and informality in your lives, one that allows you to show yourself to the world, to be open and vulnerable, but also to protect yourself from the chaos, to take advantage of the ways that rituals and other forms connect us to each other and to history. If you can find that balance, you have a solid chance at a satisfying, meaningful life. May you find the forms and structures that allow you to be yourself and to be open to the world. Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Enlow, and I serve as one of the co-clerks with Matthew Annenberg of the Board of Directors of this wonderful school. And I am here to welcome you into an unscripted, informal form of worship, the Quaker meeting. After Hudson and Julia offer us some readings, we will be moving into Quaker silence, the worship that Joshua has so ably described. The Religious Society of Friends, or Quakers, believe that there is in each of us an inner light, a divine presence. It's this belief that makes us stretched to unknown abilities to see in the other something that we may not be familiar with or comfortable with. And it is also this belief that these young people, these graduates have learned about, that allows them, as they move into the world, to continue to work to dismantle the fear and the hate that drive people to such suffering, the suffering that we have most recently witnessed in Orlando, and the suffering that we know of or don't know of that is happening every single day in our world. Among the many gifts of Friends Education is the rare gift of entering into silence unafraid. Knowledge, love, understanding, all of these require the ability to do so, to be unafraid in a very vulnerable place. A Quaker meeting is conducted in silence. It's a waiting silence. A silence that makes possible a deep calm, the profound listening to the other where one understands, learns, and gains wisdom. And more importantly, or very importantly, a revelation that none of us might have had we not actually moved into a silence and listened with each other. Any of us may speak. Some of us will remain silent. Whatever you choose to do, you will all be participating in this form of worship. We will close our moment of silence or our silent worship with a handshake, but we will begin with the readings by Hudson and Julia. Thank you.
This is On This Hill by Thomas Dudley Cabot. I've found a rest where ospreys nest and seagulls cry and waves break high with rhythmic rote from storms remote. And far as sea come home to me, the foggy veil reveals a sail. In flooding tides my hope abides for those who find the sea is kind. But now for me must ebb the sea, and on this hill to rest I will. I bid you sit and rest a bit, to count your share in worldly care, and what you do to help the view of those who come to love this home in times ahead when I am dead.
This is If You Forget Me by Pablo Neruda. I want you to know one thing. You know how this is. If I look at the crystal moon, at the red branch of the slow autumn at my window, if I touch near the fire of the impalpable ash or the wrinkled body of the log, everything carries me to you. As if everything that exists, aromas, light, metals, were little boats that sail towards those isles of yours that wait for me. Well, now, if little by little you stop loving me, I shall stop loving you little by little. If suddenly you forget me, do not look for me, for I shall already have forgotten you. If you think it long and mad, the wind of banners that passes through my life, and you decide to leave me at the shore of the heart where I have roots, remember that on that day, at that hour, I shall lift my arms, and my roots will set off to seek another land. But if each day, each hour, you feel that you are destined for me with implacable sweetness, if each day a flower climbs up to your lips to seek me, ah, my love, ah, my own, in me, all that fire is repeated. In me, nothing is extinguished or forgotten. My love feeds on your love, beloved, and as long as you live, it will be in your arms without leaving mine.
If I could have your attention, we move to the most important part of the day, and that is the awarding of the diplomas. I have used this ragged little card to read my promotion sentence for 14 years. And as Matthew alluded to, now we are under a different form of governance, so there will be a slightly noticeable change in what I have to say right now. And here it is. Now, on behalf of the Friends Seminary Board of Trustees and as approved by the faculty and administration, it is with pleasure, great affection, and admiration that I present diplomas to members of the class of 2016.
Will the first row rise? Jane Celine Acherno. Elijah Gerald Spear Allen. Catherine Masumi Bakhtat. Natalie Shear Benderly. Anya Michaela Velazquez. Sejan Kando Botia. Frederick Weiss Birnbaum. Olivia Daisy Borm-Wing. Michael Arthur Brittenham. Matthew Gerard Brunstad. Liam Andrew Cook. Ewan James Creed. Reed Alexander Cunningham. Willa Cuthrell Tuttleman. Miles Thompson Donnelly. Sabrina Louise Edelman. Will the first row be seated and the second row rise? Samuel Rob Edison. Altana Grace Ealings Haney. Camille Chizuko Fillion Raff. Rebecca Elizabeth Finley. Dana Renee Franco. Caleb Moore Freundlich. Holly Catherine Gottsagen. Samuel Howard Grobe. Soren Grunder. Charlotte Eliza Heller. Emma Rose Higgins. Giovanna Valentine Houghton. Alexander James Jensen. Thomas William Jensen. Will the second row be seated and the third row rise? Ainsley Dorrance Cass. Jack Reiner Lanzi. Anne McLaughlin Larkin. Anna Grace Lee. Scott Abrams Leff. Giles Thomas Waldman Lemon. Evan David Lieberman. Jason Levy Liebman. Emily Grace Lobel. Olivia Claire Mace. Akil Nehru Madan. Nicholas Timmel Marcus. Hudson Wadsworth McLean. Sahana Mehta. Will the third row be seated and the fourth row rise? Laura Ann Michael. Sophie Danielle Milling. Victoria Moore. Rick Gunnar Mortensen. Santiago Nino. Chi Osei. Olivia Grace Palusek. Felix Alexander Parker. Nell Pearson. Chloe Peck Sanders. Samantha Jean Peck Sanders. William Edward Peltier. Charlotte Sarah Wren Robson. Emma Francis Rose. Will the fourth row be seated and the fifth row rise? Willa Russ Schwabsky. Andrew David Settleman. Gabriella Shanti Singh. Julia Bean Takatsky. Atticus Wakefield. Scarlett Maricold Walsh. Jack J. Warshaw. Luke William Warshaw. Joseph Norman Weissman. Nicholas White. Malik Julin Williams. Shannon Elizabeth Wise. Benjamin Harley Wong. And finally, India Tara Wilmington. Will the fifth row be seated?
I believe it's time for the alma mater. Are our musicians ready? Okay, please note that the seniors, now alums, have a special verse themselves. And why don't we, out of respect for this school's 230th birthday, stand as we sing. In Gotham town there stands a school whose walls are aged in fame. Ladies and gentlemen, the class of 2016. That was a great graduation, except for that little bump over there with the musicians. Anyway, parents, audience, please sit down. And take it away, Tab.